Have you ever sat in silence and felt something powerful inside you shift, like a quiet truth you've been avoiding for years finally stepping forward? It's that moment when you look around and realize that the world is loud, demanding, constantly pulling at you, yet the greatest clarity you've ever tasted came in a moment when you were completely alone. Studies now show more men are choosing to stay single, not out of fear, not out of bitterness, but because solitude is shaping them into stronger, more grounded, more focused versions of themselves. And maybe deep down you felt it too. That strange sense of peace when you're not trying to impress anyone. That calm energy when you don't have to carry emotional battles that aren't yours. That quiet confidence when you make decisions based on purpose instead of pressure. For years, society told men that being single meant being incomplete, that you needed someone next to you to be whole, to be worthy, to be successful. But what if that was never the truth? What if being single is not a sign of lack, but a powerful stage of evolution, a season where a man learns who he is without needing validation? When you're alone, you hear your own thoughts clearly. You recognize your own identity. You begin to understand what drives you, what scares you, what you truly want from life. And in that silence, something remarkable happens. You start to grow. This video isn't anti-love. It isn't about running from connection. It's about understanding why a man often becomes his strongest, sharpest, most unstoppable self when he stands alone. Because solitude is not emptiness. It's space. Space to build, space to breathe, space to rise without permission. A relationship can be beautiful, but only when it meets you at your level of self-awareness. Only when you know yourself deeply enough that you no longer seek love to fill a void, but to share abundance. Men who spend time single often develop greater discipline, greater confidence, and a clearer sense of direction. Not because they reject love, but because they finally choose themselves first. They stop performing, they stop bending, they stop shrinking who they are to fit into someone else's expectations. When a man is single, he can pour his energy into goals, growth, and greatness without guilt. There's no battle for attention between purpose and partnership. There is only focus, and focus turns potential into power. So stay with this message until the end, because what you'll hear today may shift the way you view yourself, relationships, and your journey as a man. You're about to discover 5 shocking research-backed reasons why men are thriving single, reasons that may explain the peace you feel when you walk alone, or the restlessness you feel when you're pulled off your path. By the end, you will understand that being single isn't a pause, it's preparation. A season designed to sharpen you, build you, elevate you into the kind of man who no longer begs for love, but attracts it effortlessly. This is your reminder that solitude is not weakness. It's the birthplace of strength. And if you allow it, it will turn you into someone no one expected, but everyone will remember. When a man walks alone, something awakens inside him, an inner voice he once drowned out beneath responsibility, compromise, and expectation. Suddenly he has time. Not borrowed time, not shared time, his own. Time to think, to reflect, to grow without apology. Every hour that once slipped away in arguments, overthinking, or proving worth is now energy redirected into self-improvement, ambition, and purpose. Research in behavioral psychology shows that men who invest their time into personal development during single years show higher confidence, greater career movement, and stronger emotional independence. Because when you're single, your schedule belongs to you. Your priorities are yours. You are no longer negotiating dreams, you are building them. Think about how powerful that is. When you don't have to text every hour, explain every decision, or adjust your plans to prevent conflict, your mind finally has space to evolve. You start reading books instead of messages that drain you. You spend evenings working on your body rather than arguing over past mistakes. You wake up early not because someone expects it, but because you want more from life. And that wanting becomes fuel. The gym becomes a temple of discipline. Work becomes a proving ground. Every small achievement hits deeper because you know you earned it alone. There is a reason many great shifts in a man's life happen in solitude. Without noise, the mind gets sharper. Without validation, character gets stronger. Without distractions, ambition becomes louder. You start noticing small wins. The satisfaction of finishing a goal. The pride of building habits. The slow but unstoppable transformation from who you were into who you could be. You begin to feel hunger, not for love but for evolution, for progress, for a future that reflects your potential, not your limitations. And that hunger turns into momentum. Single life gives a man something relationships often dilute: purity of focus. When you're alone, you don't need permission to dream big. You don't fear being misunderstood for wanting more. You give yourself permission to chase things others would call unrealistic. You choose your grind over comfort. You sacrifice today for the life you want tomorrow. You're not distracted by mixed signals or emotional turbulence. You're not fighting silent battles in your mind. You're building, layer by layer, day by day. And something profound happens during this process. You stop seeking external approval. You stop wondering if you're enough for someone else and start working to become enough for yourself. Not out of insecurity, but out of self-respect. You become the kind of man who looks in the mirror and sees progress instead of potential wasted. You become proud of who you're becoming rather than worried about who isn't choosing you. When a man grows alone, he learns to love his own company. He enjoys peace more than attention. He prefers progress over validation. And this shift is powerful because a man who does not need attention becomes magnetic. A man who does not beg for love becomes attractive. A man who builds himself becomes undeniable. This is why so many men thrive when single, not because they reject companionship, but because they finally invest in themselves without limits. They grow mentally, physically, financially, spiritually. They become disciplined, focused, capable, and the world can feel that energy. People notice, opportunities open, confidence expands. The man who once questioned his worth begins to walk with certainty. And in that transformation, he discovers a truth most never understand. Solitude isn't a punishment, it's a preparation for greatness. And as a man evolves through solitude, he begins to value something he once overlooked. Ease. Not the temporary kind found in distraction or avoidance, but deep mental peace that settles in the mind like still water. It's the calmness that comes when no one is questioning your intentions. When no one is testing your patience, when no one is pulling you into emotional storms you never asked for. Many men never realize how heavily chaos weighs on them until they finally experience life without it. No silent treatment, no emotional guessing games, no pressure to constantly prove love, loyalty, or masculinity. Just quiet, just clarity, just the ability to breathe without feeling like you're failing someone. Psychologists have found that chronic relationship stress can drain focus, weaken motivation, and even reduce creativity. Stress takes energy. Arguments take time. Emotional turbulence steals mental bandwidth you could use to build your life. But when you're single, your mind becomes a workspace instead of a battlefield. You're able to think clearly, make decisions faster, and move toward goals without hesitation. You're no longer managing feelings every day, you are managing progress. Peace becomes your foundation, and productivity becomes your default. This is why men often rediscover themselves when alone. When you're not constantly trying to fix something or hold something together, you have room to fix yourself. You finally hear the thoughts that used to get drowned under arguments. You begin reflecting instead of reacting. You become more aware of your patterns, your boundaries, and your needs. You learn what drains your energy, what motivates you, what you truly value in connection. Being single forces you to face yourself, but it also frees you to know yourself. And self-knowledge is power. A man who understands his emotions controls them. A man who controls his emotions controls his life. Peace also changes the way a man carries himself. He speaks, AKs less, thinks more. He engages only where energy is respected. He doesn't chase chaos because he knows the cost of it. He values his inner world too deeply to let anyone disturb it. He chooses who enters his life instead of allowing anyone with temporary feelings to have access to his heart. He knows he doesn't have to prove his worth to be loved. He needs only to honor his worth to be respected. And there's something magnetic about a man at peace. People feel it. They feel the stability in his presence. They sense the calmness in his decisions. He is not desperate for attention or affection. He is steady. He is grounded. He is complete within himself. And this kind of completeness becomes attractive not only to others, but to life itself. Opportunities flow to a man who stands in peace. Success gravitates toward a focused mind. Confidence grows from the absence of chaos. A man who protects his peace becomes unstoppable, because nothing controls him anymore. Not arguments, not neediness, not fear of being alone. When peace becomes your priority, everything else becomes a choice, not a dependency. You no longer cling to people for comfort. You no longer lower your standards to avoid loneliness. You no longer tolerate situations that damage your spirit. You recognize that your life is not meant to be spent explaining your value. It is meant to be spent building your legacy. And with every quiet morning, every focused evening, every moment you choose growth over distraction, you step closer to your highest self. You evolve into a man who is calm, capable, and in control. A man whose peace is his power. A man whose solitude is his strength. With peace protecting his mind, a man starts noticing something else transforming: his financial life. When you are no longer spending energy trying to keep someone happy, no longer pouring money into constant plans, gifts, or emotion, bandages, you suddenly realize how much of your earning power returns to you. Money that once fed ego or approval now builds future. You begin saving, you start investing, you think long-term instead of moment-to-moment. Studies show that single men often accumulate more wealth than those in unstable relationships because focus amplifies progress. When your goals are clear and your environment is quiet, growth accelerates. You take the extra shift, not because you must, but because you want your life to expand. You learn new skills not for applause but for advancement. You spend wisely, plan carefully, and move strategically. Financial discipline becomes self-respect in action. You stop wasting money to impress. You stop proving value with your wallet. You stop stretching beyond your limits just to meet temporary emotional expectations. You begin to build instead of bleed. Every saved dollar becomes a brick in the foundation of your future. Every investment becomes a seed that will grow into choices, freedom, and security. You start thinking like a man building an empire, not a man trying to survive a storm. And with every step forward, confidence grows, not from validation but from progress. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys freedom. Freedom to walk away from environments that limit you. Freedom to pursue opportunities without fear. Freedom to choose relationships out of desire, not dependency. A financially stable man isn't controlled by circumstances. He isn't intimidated by uncertainty. He doesn't settle for less because he believes more is possible. And that belief becomes power. The man who once doubted his potential starts seeing results. The one who second-guessed his decisions begins trusting his judgment. The one who once compared himself to others starts competing only with yesterday's version of himself. Solitude sharpens ambition. When you're single, you can hustle without guilt. You can grind without explanation. You can fail and rise again without feeling judged. You can take risks others might not understand because you don't need permission to grow. You start waking up with purpose instead of pressure. You sleep knowing your work is building something real, something lasting, something that will become proof of who you chose to become. And soon money becomes more than currency. It becomes proof. Proof of discipline, proof of vision, proof of patience. You stop begging for opportunities and start creating them. You stop trying to fit into rooms and start building your own. You realize that financial growth isn't just about wealth, it's about identity. A man with control over his finances stands taller. He speaks differently. He carries himself with a quiet authority that doesn't need to shout. because he knows he can walk away from anything that doesn't align with his growth. This kind of strength can only be built in seasons where the world is quiet enough for a man to hear his own ambition. When distractions disappear, drive becomes louder. When he is no longer drained emotionally, he becomes unstoppable physically and mentally. And slowly, without needing to announce it, he becomes a man with options, a man with direction, a man capable of building a life instead of just living one. And something remarkable happens as his wealth, peace, and focus grow. His standards rise, not out of arrogance but out of awareness. He no longer accepts bare minimum affection just to avoid being alone. He no longer entertains inconsistent people just to feel valued. He no longer allows access to those who drain him emotionally, distract him mentally, or slow him down spiritually. Time alone has taught him what true respect feels like. Solitude has shown him the difference between attachment and connection. Growth has made him careful about who he lets near his mind, his heart, and his life. A man who spent years pleasing, proving, and bending now demands alignment instead of approval. He seeks compatibility, not chaos. He chooses peace over passion that burns hot but dies fast. He can walk away without collapsing because he is not rooted in emotional dependency anymore. He knows love should expand his life, not shrink it. It should bring out purpose, not pain. It should feel like partnership, not pressure. And if it doesn't, he would rather stand alone than settle for something half-hearted. When standards rise, attraction changes. He stops chasing those who don't see him. He stops begging for the bare minimum. Instead, he moves with dignity. Slow, selective, intentional. He looks into patterns, not promises. He reads actions, not words. He values effort, not excuses. And when a man carries himself like that, he transforms from someone seeking love to someone worthy of great love. A love built on respect. A love that doesn't require him to shrink. A love that adds value instead of taking his energy away. But even deeper than high standards comes emotional strength. Because being alone forces a man to face his pain. Without distractions, he meets his insecurities, his past wounds, his regrets head-on. And instead of hiding from them, he learns to heal. He confronts the parts of himself he avoided for years. He forgives himself for mistakes that kept him stuck. He learns to sit with discomfort instead of burying it in temporary companionship. And it's in that discomfort that he becomes unbreakable. A man who has healed himself no longer fears heartbreak. A man who has stood alone in the dark is not afraid of losing people. A man who built confidence from within is no longer shaken by rejection. His emotional power doesn't come from who chooses him, but from who he chose to be. Come. And that power changes everything. Suddenly, he is not controlled by fear, by loneliness, by desperation. He gives love, but he does not collapse without it. He receives affection, but he does not rely on it to feel complete. Presence becomes a preference, not a necessity. When you reach this stage, the world feels different. Opportunities open. You attract healthier people. You create deeper connections, not because you need someone, but because you have something valuable to share. Your emotional maturity becomes your armor. Your standards become your compass. Your growth becomes your identity. And the man who once struggled to prioritize himself becomes the man who refuses to lose himself ever again. He moves forward with calm intensity, carrying the quiet confidence of someone who built his strength in solitude and earned his worth through growth. A man like that is not just living, he is evolving. And this is where the truth reveals itself fully. Solitude is not the end of a man's journey, it is the beginning of his transformation. A man who has grown alone, disciplined alone, healed alone, and built alone becomes someone different. He carries himself with calm power, speaks with certainty, and lives with purpose. He becomes the kind of man whose presence is felt even in silence. A man who doesn't chase because he attracts, who doesn't beg because he chooses, who doesn't fear loss because he knows he can rebuild anything from zero. This is the reward for walking the path many avoid. This is the outcome of prioritizing growth over comfort. A man like this doesn't enter relationships from emptiness. He enters from fullness. He does not seek someone to complete him. He seeks someone who complements him. He does not cling to love for survival. He shares love from overflow, and the world responds differently to a man who stands tall within himself. Opportunity. Appear where doubt once lived. People respect him because he respects himself. Love gravitates toward him because he no longer chases validation through affection. He has become whole. He has become steady. He has become undeniable. If you are in your single phase right now, let this message sink deep. This is not a waiting room. This is your training ground. This is where you sharpen your mind, strengthen your body, stack your finances, and build the version of yourself you once dreamed of becoming. Not for anyone else, but for you. For the man who deserves to live with dignity, clarity, and purpose. For the man who refuses to waste his potential, who rises every day even when no one is clapping. Your solitude is your advantage. It's quiet so you can hear your ambition. It's empty so you can fill it with greatness. It's challenging so you can grow stronger than you ever imagined. And when the time comes that you choose to share your life with someone, you won't be entering it from fear of loneliness or the hunger to be seen. You'll enter it as a man who brings value, vision, and foundation. A man who can lead, provide, support, and love without losing himself. A man who stands firm in his standards and soft in his heart. A man who knows his worth not because someone told him, but because he proved it through action, patience, growth, and discipline. Your single years are your forging years. The world may not applaud it now, but one day the results will speak louder than words ever could. You will look back and thank yourself for not rushing, for not settling, for not sacrificing your future for temporary comfort. You will be proud of every lonely night you spent building discipline. Proud of every decision you made that others didn't understand. Proud of every dream you chased while the world slept. Because it all adds up. It all matters. It all shapes you. As you continue on this path, remember this: greatness is born in isolation. Confidence grows in silence. Purpose blooms where there is focus. You are not just single, you are becoming stronger, becoming wiser, becoming someone extraordinary. And the man who becomes extraordinary alone never returns to the world the same. And as you stand here in this chapter of your life, hear this with your whole being. These years of solitude are not meant to break you. They are meant to raise you. They are preparing you for a future where you will not flinch when life gets hard, where you will not crumble when someone leaves, where you will not shrink yourself to be loved. You are being shaped into a man who can walk into any room with certainty, who can face storms without trembling, who can look at challenges and say, "I've been through worse alone, and I survived." That kind of man is rare. That kind of man is powerful. That kind of man is not just alive, he is awake. The world notices a man like that, not because he seeks attention, but because he radiates something deeper than confidence, self-mastery, a calm fire, a grounded presence. You move differently when you know your worth. You speak slower. You react less. You choose carefully. You stop explaining your standards because you are too busy living them. You stop proving yourself to people who don't deserve that energy. You stop chasing love that requires you to abandon yourself. You stand tall, rooted in everything you've built within. And if someone eventually walks into your life, they will meet a man who already knows how to give love without losing himself in it. A man who doesn't use affection as escape, but as expression. You won't offer a broken heart hoping to be healed. You'll offer a full heart ready to grow. You won't expect someone to save you. You'll invite them to stand beside you. Relationships will no longer be a place to hide from loneliness. They will be a space to share abundance. You will not drown in love. You will lead through love. Because you built yourself first. You faced your fears instead of burying them. You chose growth when comfort called your name. This is why your journey matters. Every disciplined morning, every sacrifice, every silent night spent grinding instead of longing. Every moment you chose peace over chaos, progress over distraction, standards over desperation. You are building the kind of life most men only dream about but never commit to. You are training your mind to be stable, your heart to be strong, your soul to be unshakable. And there will come a day when all of it makes sense, when opportunities align, when success meets preparation, when love meets wholeness, when purpose meets identity. On that day, you will look back at this season not with regret but with gratitude. So breathe. You're on the right path. You are not behind. You are becoming. You are evolving into someone the world will one day recognize, not for what you had, but for who you became. Let your solitude be sacred. Let your growth be proof. Let your journey be the story you one day tell, not as struggle, but as transformation. Because the man who rises alone gains something relationships cannot give: inner power. And when a man carries inner power, life can bend, people can leave, storms can come, but he will not fall. He will stand unbroken, he will walk unshaken, he will live unstable.